Hi, I'm Amber Brewer, and I'm here today with Kim Biggio. Kim is a credentialed parent educator who is certified in positive discipline. Hi, Kim.
Hi, Amber.
Thanks
I'm
for
glad to
being
be
here.
here
Yeah,
today.
thank you. I'm a realtor, and I've noticed over the years that it's really tough on kids to move. And so I thought it would be great if we chatted with Kim today and we could get some advice as parents on how we could support our kids during such a tough time.
And I think it's great, Amber, because for children and adults alike, moving in the list of life stressors is listed under death of a spouse.
Wow.
So this is very difficult, even if you move next door. Changing your location, as I said, with an adult or a child, can be very dysregulating. There are a lot of things that are important to set up in advance
Okay.
to help a child with that transition.
Okay. And what would those be?
Well, I think the very first thing that's really important is closure from where they're leaving.
Okay.
So, whether they're attending a school or in a neighborhood, having that goodbye and really making sure that they get that chance to have closure is super important. Children process in a different way that adults do. And that kinesthetic activity of actually, hugging somebody goodbye can help them tremendously. So, that would be the first thing. The next thing that would be super important would be to, once you're at the new location, to establish the child's room and environment first. If you could possibly do that kind of similar to the old place, that would help as well. And to also involve the child in that experience.
Yeah.
Children love new bedding and paint colors and curtains. And if you get your child to be a part of the process, you're going to set them up to be way more successful in the transition.
Yeah, and that's what I've found personally because we are trying to involve the kids as much as possible so they feel comfortable in their new environment. And something that I like to do is just a little walkthrough with the kids, and we do a staging and we go through each room and say, where's your couch gonna go? Where's your bed gonna go? And I find that really helps them to really see themselves in their new space.
Environment.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome, and I think it's also really important for them to be outside their new house. And where's their school?
Right.
Where are they going to go to the supermarket? Where is the local park? These are super important before children to kind of understand their new space.
Right.
The other thing that I think is critically important for children is for the adults, the parents, to help facilitate the development of new relationships. So this is super important, whether it is going to a neighbor's house and knocking on the door and introducing yourself, or going to the local elementary school and finding out about summer programs or other things that children can be involved in.
Yeah.
But the key issue there is that children, when they make a move, need the support of the adults.
What should the parent look out for in terms of warning signs of how the kids are feeling?
I think, a lot of times what happens is if the transition is rough, which a lot of times it can be, the child can do many different behaviors. One is withdrawing and becoming very quiet and withdrawn and kind of introverted. And that is an immediate flag that the child is processing this emotional experience. The opposite of that is the child acting out and the child becoming defiant, the child becoming very dysregulated emotionally, possibly a lot of crying and tantruming and other things. I think it is super important for all families to have some type of family communication. I'll try not to seg it into all of my tools, Amber, but I do believe one of the tools, and Amber knows this well.
Yes, and I love your tools, and that's why you're here.
So I was going to say is one of the tools is the tool of the family meeting, the weekly family meeting. And, to establish a forum and a venue for effective communication within the family is critically important, regardless if they're moving or not.
Right.
But if you have that in place, then you are actually able to address these issues with your child in a very routine and regular way that allows them to speak their feelings in a safe environment. So that would be important to establish prior to the move.
Right. And do you think that that would be the appropriate place to introduce the move to them?
I think it would be an excellent venue.
Okay.
I think for families that utilize the tool of family meetings, it brings the families closer together. It allows for those hard news things and for the positive news things, but it is when the family comes together. And that would actually be a very, very appropriate time to notify children about a move and to give them a chance to talk about how that makes them feel and maybe how the parents could help facilitate the processing of that information. Because I just want to say again, it's really dysregulating for adults. And so for children, it's very, very important that the adults facilitate that transition.
Yeah, and I think it's hard for the adults because we're the ones making the decision and putting this on our children. And so I think that's difficult for people to deal with.
Well, I think a lot of times, depending on if the move is a positive or a negative one,
Right.
in light of our world, some people have to downsize or they're losing their homes, and we have a lot of things that these moves are not of positive nature. And so the adult is actually processing their own trauma and their own experience. And in that particular case, I always recommend to people to not hesitate to reach out to some professional support, whether it's a parent educator, a child therapist, or other type of things. I think it's just really important that if the adult knows that they're dealing with their own stuff and can't really handle their child's dysregulation, that they reach out for outside support, because otherwise what happens is everybody goes down. So we want to set it up for success.
Yeah. And what feelings do you, in your practice, feel that kids experience the most surrounding a move?
I mean, I would say the biggest feeling would be grief.
Yeah.
Because children really don't even understand the word grief, nor do we.
Yeah.
And closure and change is something that's hard for the human condition. So children who have never experienced this before are going into change and the unknown, and they're not really developmentally cognitive enough to understand. So a lot of times there's grieving that goes on. On the flip side, innocence is a beautiful, wonderful thing. And sometimes children have pure excitement.
Yeah.
And then we just kind of go with that.
Right.
But the reality is it's usually many different emotions over a period of time that come and go. And if those feelings are not regulated and processed in the appropriate amount of time, then it would be important for the parent to maybe look for some outside support to help facilitate that transition and change for the child.
And do you think that there's really a huge difference age-wise with how you would deal with kids? So I think what we're talking about really works for a large
I was going to say, to be
group,
honest
right?
with you, I would say it's across the board.
Yeah.
The only thing that I would say would be for the teen set. The teen set is an incredibly unique age and stage and developmental time, and to be quite frank, very traumatic for that age to move.
Yeah.
And has a lot of different issues that come up. Quite frankly, once a child gets into 9th grade, very difficult to make moves. But middle school and what we call the tweens actually is one of the highest periods of dysregulation, and so a very tough time. So yes, the tools are absolutely the same across the board, but a parental kind of flag needs to be up depending on the age and stage about what the specific needs might be.
Yeah. And to reach out when you see something that
Absolutely. I think
with.
for the teen set and the tween set, we have a whole different world going right now. And what I will just share with you is that the teens and the tweens in our world have so much more stress than we ever did, when we were at that age.
Right.
And what's happening is we're having a lot of other secondary issues that are being created. So the teens is a really dicey time anyway, and moving during that time absolutely needs to be supported. With all that said, I just want to say, though, that sometimes parents don't have control, and whether it's a financial decision or a professional decision, that once the adults make the decision to move, guilt is the number one barrier to effective parenting. So to let children know that you're guilt-ridden and you're ruining their life, and
we can express our own feelings,
but we need to
adult.
set that up to be a positive thing,
Yeah.
because that energy, can actually set the stage for other things to happen.
And I think that's hard because as parents, we probably tend to not do that in most cases, right?
Well, that's just, we're human too.
Yeah.
So
I
that
think that's important to remember.
Yeah.
We're human too. We're sad too about the move if we are moving far away or.
Well, that's
whatever
the other
case
thing.
may
I don't
be.
think parents should be afraid to share their feelings.
Yeah.
And it really is okay to let a child know that you can be sad about leaving friends and excited about making new ones.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I think is really important is we have the gift of the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually moved around a lot as a child and went to multiple high schools, and it was very difficult. And now people can truly stay connected through the internet.
Right.
And
it's a different world.
we have the ability to tell a child that if they're moving and they're going to miss their friend, they could actually FaceTime their friend and see them. And we really, or Skype them, we can really set up a structure to where that child maintains that friendship. Yeah. And so that's a different thing than used to be a long time ago.
Yeah. And then once they get settled in, what would is it just about keeping the routine at that point and really just keeping things?
Well, I think getting set up as quickly as possible because a lot of people move in different ways.
Right.
And I think, let's face it, in a perfect world, setting up the house, I talk to children on a regular and routine basis, and I actually have a kid where they've moved maybe a year or two ago and still are in boxes.
Oh. Yeah.
And so that becomes very difficult for the child when they want to find their things. And so I think, one, we set up the child's room first.
Yeah.
Two, we then set up the kitchen, so that we have a functioning kitchen. And then we make a plan to try to get that house to be set up as best we can and to establish those new routines as quickly as we can. Because guess what? Unpacking is really hard, so sometimes it's hard to get out of the house. And just taking your kids to the park for an hour when you're moving, you got to find that balance.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what it's about.
Yeah. I agree. Just making them comfortable in their environment. Yeah. So Kim, what I've found with kids, or this question come up more than once, is that kids think that they're moving to a new house and that all their stuff is going to stay at the old house. And they can't quite wrap their head around the concept that their stuff is going to come with them. So how do we explain this to kids?
I think that that's a really great question, Amber, because once again, children don't, especially who have never moved before, don't even understand that whole concept.
Right.
I think number one, of course, utilizing the venue of the family meeting to talk about everything that the move encompasses, but most importantly, getting children involved in the packing and sorting of the move so that they actually are in charge.
Right.
My hottest moving tip that I'll throw in here is at Costco, they have clear hefty bags. And this is really great for kids because you can put their blankies and their toys and their other things, and it's a visual.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's great for adults too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is really great. But I think having the child be a part of the process of the move, specifically with their belongings, actually gets them intrinsically involved in the whole experience so they don't feel as powerless. And that's how I would handle their stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's great because that's part of them to kids, their belongings, right? Their stuffed animals, their toys, and so they need
Super
to feel
important.
comfortable. Yeah.
Super important.
And Kim's in Monterey, but she does appointments over the phone. So
I do.
Yes. So she's a great resource if you find yourself in this situation and and need some help working through it.
No, absolutely. And just to my little, I have my website, kimbiggioparenteducator.com, and you can check out my website. I'm available to help anyone, any parent, any child, because it's just really important that we kind of facilitate all of this work because there's not that many parent educators out there.
Yeah.
So thank you, Amber, for
Yeah.
allowing me to have a voice in helping children process and transition moves.
Kim, thank you so much for being here today and for all of your great advice. I always love hearing it. So
Absolutely, Amber. Any way I could help.
appreciate that. Thank you for watching. We both hope that you found something of value here today. And if you are moving and having any struggles of your own, please feel free to contact Kim.
Absolutely.
And she's a great resource. And if there's anything that I can help you with, please feel free to reach out. We're both here for you.